Hello, it's me, Florida Catholic guy, Daryl here. Just came back from Mass. Had to go Saturday evening, or afternoon I guess, 4 o'clock. It was a Novus Ordo Mass. First time I've been to the Novus Ordo since, I think it's since my dad's funeral in 2012. Almost 8 years. And I was quickly reminded why I don't go to the Novus Ordo. I prepared myself as best as I could for what would happen there. At least wasn't as bad as some that I've been to. I think the priest said he was from Haiti. I say I think that's what he said because you couldn't understand much of what he said. I know during his sermon he talked about anger, and probably would have been a good sermon for me if I could have heard the entire thing. But seemed like a good holy priest. Of course, there's not much good and holy about the Novus Ordo, but that's another story. It is what it is. Made a mistake. The church I went to is down here in town I live in, Sun City Center, Prince of Peace Catholic Church. And of course it's the first time I've been to that church, so I didn't know anything about it. So I made the mistake of going in where the parish hall is, and they have a mass in there, and I kind of thought that maybe they're doing renovations on the church or something, so they're having mass in the hall. So after Mass, I asked one of the ushers that were there, if this was the main church or if something was going on, and he says, during the snowbird season, they have 2 masses at the same time, one of them here in the hall and the other in the main church, because you get so many people, which I guess is a good thing, but that's went to the wrong Mass, which makes me interested, because I know one of the priests at that particular church used to say the traditional Latin Mass, so I was kind of hoping to get to talk to him a little bit, if I could, but wasn't able to do that. Kind of makes me want to go to another Mass in the main church, to number 1 to see the church, and number 2 to see if it's a little different than the one in the hall. I don't expect it would be. I mean, like I said, for Novus Ordo, it wasn't bad, other than in the hall they had no kneelers. All they were is just chairs, and of course everybody stood during the consecration, and I knelt, obviously. I knelt during the consecration, and I also knelt during the Agnus Dei until communion, and I didn't receive communion, not because of any known mortal sin or anything, but I don't consider myself in communion with the Novus Ordo. I went to hopefully fulfill my Sunday obligation, because I'm going to the Daytona 500 tomorrow, which I can't wait. And it's like my traditional priest said one time. He said, if you can't make it to the Sunday Latin Mass, he says at least go to the Saturday afternoon Novus Ordo, because that time it was couldn't make it on a Sunday due to my motorcycle class I was taking. And the priest said, you don't want to go to hell over a motorcycle class. And I got what he was saying. Didn't at that particular time, I didn't end up making it because my classes were supposed to be all day on Saturday and just in the morning on Sunday. Actually, yeah, I had all day on Saturday and in the morning Sunday, and so I wasn't able to make. Trying to think. Yeah, I had to. It was a while ago, so I don't remember. I think I had to go. Let's go. Had to go to class. I think that was my regular class, but now I don't remember. But anyway, I couldn't go Saturday because I think the class was in the afternoon or something, or all day Saturday. Actually, now that I think of it, I think because I was supposed to go to the Saturday afternoon Novus Ordo, so the class was supposed to be just in the morning on Saturday, and either in the morning or all day on Sunday. Yeah, all day on Sunday because that was the exam. So yeah, I had to. But anyway, Saturday you couldn't ride in the morning because of the weather. That was when we had one of the tropical storms we had this year come through. So anyway, I wasn't able to go Saturday afternoon, wasn't able to go Sunday. So the next day, or next week, I went back, and when I went to Mass, I told the priest, and he told me, well, if that's the case, then it wasn't a mortal sin, but I still confessed it anyway, because I think that was a makeup class, because I had to take the riding part of the motorcycle class twice, because I flunked the first part of it. Not really flunked, I just didn't have confidence, so I worked with my coach on an afternoon. He helped me out on his time, and that was good. And he helped me out, and I went back and took the class and passed it, and bought my Harley. But anyway, so yeah, he said, you still got to go to Mass, whether it's for, well, he said if it's a class, something like that, then it can be excused if you didn't have any way of getting to Mass other than that. But, obviously going to the Daytona 500 isn't a valid excuse to not go to Mass. Just bear with me here, and gotta go pick up my dog's stuff here. And so yeah. I had to, today I kind of had to go to the Novus Ordo. Hopefully it, despite what it is, hopefully it still counts my Sunday obligation. According to my priest it does, so I have to trust in his guidance and wisdom. And so anyway, I did that, and like I said, I kind of want to go back and go to Mass in the main church. Of course, I was thinking to myself that even if I go on Saturday sometime, it doesn't mean that I can't go to my Latin Mass on Sunday also, if I don't feel it's a full Mass or whatever you want to call it. But like I said, I don't receive communion at the Novus Ordo just because there is too many questions. I mean, I still genuflect and everything, because I do believe that, because there's two ways of looking at it. Either the only ones that have the true body and blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus in the Eucharist is the traditional Catholics. And I mean, there's so many different people that believe different things. You got some people that believe none of the ordinations done in a new rite, either to the priesthood or to the ordination of a bishop, is invalid if it's done in a new rite. That the only valid bishops and priests, and for that matter, cardinals and popes, were the ones that were done in the old rite. And I can understand how they feel that way, and I get what they're saying, but I also believe that God wouldn't do that to the vast majority of Catholics, because, even though Catholics that go to the Novus Ordo Mass, most of them haven't been properly catechized. A lot of them don't even know their faith, but they're trying to live it as best as they can. And for the ones that do believe what the Catholic Church teaches, I don't believe our Lord would abandon them. Shadow, over here. Shadow. Let's go, Shadow. I don't believe that God would abandon the good Catholics that go to the Novus Ordo, and there is a lot of them. I always say it and I mean it, there's probably a lot of Novus Ordo Catholics that are living their faith better than I am as a traditional Catholic, and I mean that. And obviously I'm not perfect by any means. I'm always working on myself, trying to be a better person, a better disciple of Christ. But I have my failings, and some of them are big kind, but I work on it. Come on, Shadow. I work on it, and hopefully do better every day. That's all I can do. So, like I said, I don't believe Jesus would abandon all those good Catholics that either don't know about the Novus, don't know about the traditional Latin Mass, or haven't been instructed correctly. Although in today's day, there's really no excuse. because you have resources online that you can look up, and you got the sprinklers going off here. And of course my dog doesn't like water, so he avoids them at all cost. So yeah, I don't believe Christ would abandon the good Catholics that are still, for whatever reason, in the Novus Ordo. And as far as popes, the one we got now, I mean, I really don't feel I should say how I feel about him, because my views about him are probably outside of the mainstream of especially the Novus Ordo, and if made public could probably get me excommunicated. Well, let's just say I have real doubts about whether the Pope is actually the true Pope. There is, well, I mean, I guess I will get into it because I've gotten into it on my Facebook, so there is a, I guess you want to say, theory or a belief. It's called CD privationist. I think I'm saying that right. And it's not the same thing as a CD vacantist. CD vacantists believe that there's no Pope, the chair of Peter is vacant, and there's several different groups of CD vacantists. There's those that believe that Benedict XVI is still Pope, those that believe that that we haven't had a real Pope since Pius XII. And the CD privationist position is that the chair of Peter is occupied, that Francis is the truly elected Pope, but he cannot actually be the true Pope unless he renounces his heresies that he is publicly supported and believes in. So you're not a CD vacantist because the chair of Peter is filled. Francis is elected legitimately as the Pope, and but he's not. He cannot do anything, you know, as far as doing any official teachings or anything until and unless he renounces his public heresies that he professes to. So I know there's a lot of people that say, well, that's not a legitimate theory, that he's either the Pope or he's not the Pope. And but to me that makes the most sense, because if you believe, well, let's say you're a CD vacantist that believes that Pius XII was the last legitimate Pope. That means all the cardinals and all the priests and everything that were ordained by illegitimate bishops and popes and cardinals are invalid. That means all their masses, all their sacraments would be invalid. And furthermore, with the exception of a very few, and it gets fewer every day, there's no legitimate cardinals that could elect a pope. So how would you go about electing a pope? You couldn't. Then the thing with those that believe Benedict XVI is pope, I can see that. But even though Benedict XVI was light years better than Francis, there were still some issues that he had that were kind of public heresies. Not as bad as Francis, but still there nonetheless. But let's just, forget about that for a minute. All right, so Benedict XVI was a pope. That means Francis isn't. So what happens when Benedict XVI dies? And Francis, if Francis is gone by then, his successor, if he dies, then that means you don't have a legitimate pope. So that's going to be a problem then. So, well, I don't believe the new rites, including the Mass and the ordinations and basically everything that was changed in the Vatican II revolution. I don't believe those rites are as good. I believe they were inferior, but I have to believe they're at least valid, because that means even priests, good holy priests that we have that say the traditional Latin Mass, those masses would all be invalid and illicit, and only those, basically it would only be the SSPX and the Sede Vacantis that would have valid sacraments. And while I do believe that the SSPX does have a legitimate claim to have valid sacraments, and I would have no problem going to an SSPX Mass, I would have a problem going to a Sede Vacantis Mass unless it was an absolute dire emergency. And that's how I feel. And obviously there's a problem. I mean, even my priest that does our Latin Mass, during our meeting the other night, he said that when he got out of the seminary, he went to a Novus Ordo seminary, he had to forget everything he learned at the seminary and relearn the true Catholic faith. And that's pretty sad. And I can go on and on about how many bad priests I've listened to, how many times I've walked out of a Novus Ordo Mass because the priest was preaching heresies. And I just can't stay in a situation like that and give my consent to that when he's going against the precepts of the church. And at least this Mass that I went to today, the priest, what I could understand of him, was had a decent sermon, and that made it bearable, tolerable. I'd like to see the other priest, the one that did the Latin Mass, because I guess obviously he's, from what I've heard, he does really good sermons that you can understand in English. So we'll see. And I'm almost at my home, so I will end this. Thank you all for watching and listening, and I will be at the Daytona 500 tomorrow. Maybe I'll do a video, who knows. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, share with your friends, thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever. Even suggestions of what you want to hear me do or yap about. I still have those funny videos I want to do and get out there sometime. But yeah, thank you for watching. Good night and God bless you. Bye.